You found the Live Local Marketing Podcast, where business owners share their knowledge about what's working in the market today. No fluff, just their experiences and stories from people who are making it happen. And if authentic, practical marketing resonates with you, be sure to visit livelocal.warmmarketing.com and learn to grow your business on warm marketing referrals. Now, on to the show. Welcome. Thanks for joining us here at the Live Local Warm Marketing Podcast. And today we're with Max. Sir, how are we feeling today?
We're doing good today. How you doing?
Oh, man, I'm ready for the questions. We already had a great conversation, and I know this one's going to be a good one. You and I are in the same wavelength, and I know you've got some good stories. I can feel it already. So we're going to do a little bit of background on you and then hop right into the questions. So Max is known as the blind blogger. He's a serial online entrepreneur with 2 decades experience educating people about the need for benefits of improving accessibility. He's been working with clients for 5 years, serving as accessibility advisor to Podmatch. And he's been published in Consumer Reports, writes a regular column for PHP Architect called Barrier Free Bites, and regularly shares his knowledge with online publications and much, much more, including working in a carnival. So I don't know if we'll get to that too, but he's got quite an extensive background. Sir, ready for the questions?
Yes, I think I am.
All right, here we go. The first one is, talk to us about a time that you had a loss that turned out to be a win.
Loss that turned out to be a win. Well, the biggest loss was after my father's death, our carnival going out of business because we weren't ready to run it without him. Realizing that I needed to find something to do with myself to occupy my time, and deciding to help other people sell their surplus amusement equipment online. In order to do that, I had to learn so many things, including teaching myself to code HTML. And over the years, I've learned that I'm much more capable than I thought I ever was. But the real important thing is I've discovered that I'm highly resilient, that I can learn to do many new things, and that my physical, mental, and emotional well-being are better now that I'm no longer involved in a business that was not really satisfying to me after my father's passing.
Oh, my goodness. All right. So let me ask you a personal question. So you're doing coding and you're learning it. Obviously, you have vision. How do you learn code while being the blind blogger? How does that work? I'm curious.
Yeah. So what I did is I went to the W3C school and I read their tutorials, and I realized that coding HTML is really not all that complicated. Now, Java and PHP, they are very complicated because they don't have the symmetry that HTML does, in my opinion. But I would go, okay, here's one thing. I would read it. I would do it. I would practice it. I'd put it on my website and then ask people to look at it and tell me if it turned out right. And most of the time it did, except when I started learning to embed images. Back then, file names had to be precise. Now you can have spaces and some other characters. But if you did the file name wrong when you were adding an image to a website, you'd end up with black holes or yellow holes or green holes. So I often ended up with holes in my website, but people would tell me about it. I'd fix them. We'd go on. But the thing is, I actually think my vision loss is an advantage with coding, because you never get ear strain coding HTML. And once you realize that there's a symmetry, that you can't have a left without a right, or an open without a close, or a top without a bottom, then it just comes down to doing the same darn thing over and over and over to the nth degree over again. And, that's how you build the site, pages, links, and all that stuff. It's really not that complicated. And again, I feel like I had an easier time of it. My brother, Michael, who told me where to go to start learning about coding, he said, yeah, Max, sometimes my eyes get tired and the less than's and greater than start to look like rhombuses.
That's an advantage. That is interesting. All right. So let's talk to the audience about what your current favorite marketing strategy is when you sit down with clients and you talk to them. What is your favorite? Like, I really love doing this with clients. A quick break before we get to that next answer, because I know that answer is going to be brilliant, which is why I chose this moment to interrupt. If you love what you're seeing and you want to run your business off of warm marketing referrals, visit our website, livelocalwarmmarketing.com. It's got valuable resources, office hours, memberships, the book, an array of resources to help you get rid of cold calls, cold leads, door knocking, and run a business you can be proud of through referrals and warm marketing. Now, back to the show.
Right. When it comes to my favorite thing right now is I'm just I've learned from Alex over at Podmatch that every time I sit down to have a conversation, it's an opportunity to attract a new client. So, hosting my podcast, doing it live, encouraging people that are business owners to come on the podcast and discuss their business, encouraging inventors and creators of all kinds to go on my podcast. I forget who wrote it. Somebody posted it on LinkedIn a while back. It said, most people don't want to be pitched or sold to, but everybody wants to get exposure for their brand. So inviting people on my podcast and having a conversation and having a real conversation, not a overly scripted, let's talk about the things I want you to talk about and get yourself out of here. And then we never talk again. One of the things I do is my calendar has buffers built into it, which I highly recommend, even if you're not a podcaster. So I have 15 minutes before an interview and 15 minutes afterwards to allow time for the amazing, unpredicted, unscripted stuff to happen. And so the podcast helps me begin a relationship. I can then follow up on that later, check back in with people and see if there's anything that they need or that they wondered about, and go from there. And last year I interviewed a gentleman who runs a tourist company down in Cancun, and he's in my CRM now to get with him as soon as he finishes a website upgrade to work with him on accessibility. Of course, I tried to explain to him that it would make more sense to do the accessibility as he was doing the web upgrade, but that's an argument you can't win.
I think if he's doing trips to Cancun, you need to go to them to do the website. You need to go there. You got to be on site because that's the best way to do it, right?
I agree with you, and I suggested that, and I explained to him that, you know, because he recommends other companies within his local area, that he should have me stay there for an extended period of time so I could make sure he wasn't referring people to third parties that were going to give him problems, you know. So I'm like, dude, we could get a documentary, we could get a book out of this. I mean, you know, just write the check and hook me up and help me with my visa. I mean, so yeah, I did suggest that. I'm actually known as the "if you don't ask" guy. That's one of my many monikers because back when we had a small carnival, the only way we could get bookings was to ask everybody, because we had a small show in a state where bigger is better. And a lot of people's events, the organizers, their ego was based on who had the better event, the better calendar, the better carnival, the better performers. So in that condition, we really had to work hard. And when I would get tired of getting told no, my dad would say, "Hey, Maxie," he called me Maxie. He would say, "Maxie, if you don't ask, they can't say yes. Now stop complaining and call that next number I give you." And that is stuck with me, and it's become a habit. It's something I've done so often that I do it now without even thinking I'm going to do it. So absolutely, I asked the guy about bringing me down there to help him work on digital as well as in-person accessibility.
I love the thoroughness. You got to be thorough. So when you're talking about the podcast, let me ask you this: what things do you still do hands-on, and what stuff are you passing off to a team or AI?
Well, at this time, I'm pretty much doing it all by myself.
Wow.
Yeah, I know it's a mistake, but it's one of those things. I'm not doing it because I don't trust other people. Okay, I'm going to explain two things. One is I would love to have a VA, but every time I go somewhere to look and see who might be a good option for being a virtual assistant, I get overwhelmed by the number of people. And as a blind person, I'm concerned about being able to fully evaluate their online profiles and try to get an idea of how representative that online profile is of the person I may end up working with. So I have actually asked my friends, people I work with, to recommend a VA, and so far nobody has done that. A Robert Gaines, who's also a Podmatch member, thought he had somebody for me, but when the push came to shove, they decided they weren't interested. That's part of it. Another part of it is a lot of people are using AI-based tools to help with their podcast. And I would do that too, except a lot of the AI tools are not accessible to be used with a screen reader. And Yeah, a lot of these tools just don't play nice, or they weren't designed properly. For example, I use StreamYard, and when I go live, I have to have the guests tell me when we're live because a lot of the notifications in the StreamYard system don't talk to my
Virtual.
screen reader. So since they don't talk to my screen reader, I have my guests make noise. When Alex came on the podcast, he played his ukulele, so I'm having fun with it. And and
Great.
and each episode, I make a point of commenting on the social media accounts that I post to about the fact that StreamYard needs to up their game. So far, they haven't noticed my passive aggressive commentary on their product, but I keep hoping either they're going to decide to hire me and fix it, or somebody else that offers a streaming platform is going to go, that guy there could really help our business if we work hard at
Yes.
accessibility. And
That's good.
if you're if you're a SaaS company, you're somebody developing an AI product. One of the best ways you can stand out is to partner with people who have disabilities, because the number of people living with the challenges of disability is highly underestimated, and we tend to be very loyal consumers who will advocate for businesses making the effort. So it's a good way for a business to stand out, to make sure that their products, services, and content are accessible, but especially with people in the AI tools or AI content creation area, because not only are the tools not generally accessible, quite often the output is not being tested for accessibility. So I run across people's forums and calendars and blog posts, and I'm like, man, I wish somebody would tell them that the third-party software they're using is not protecting them the way they think it is. So these things all come together as reasons why I don't currently have a team or staff or AI helping me with my podcast. But one thing that does help me with my podcast, and I think this is important to business owners, is one of the most impactful things I ever heard was I read Louise Hay, one of her books, where she said that should or should not are two of the most dangerous phrases in the English language. So
it's true.
Yes. So going back to the very beginning of my first podcast, I decided that I wasn't going to edit my podcast. And I made a very intentional decision that, hey, I don't enjoy it. I'm not good at it. The tools for editing, even audio, are not great. And if I decide to do that or wait till I can do it, then I won't put my content out in the world. And there are people out there who needed to hear what I had to say and still need to hear what I have to say. So I would have been doing a disservice to who knows how many people out in the world by not. So I decided just not to edit. I decided to use the onboard camera and microphone on my laptop. And of course, that didn't lead to the greatest video, but people are willing to put up with a little, let's say, not ready for prime time, if they feel like you're making a sincere effort, and if you're doing something that they're scared to do themselves. So with podcasting, if you're not great to start with, it ain't going to hurt you too much, because there are millions of people who want to have a podcast who will never, because they're scared of it. So, or they're overwhelmed by all the things the experts tell them they have to do or have. So, but I decided not to edit, and I just tell people, hey, the podcast is recorded live, and of course now it's actually live, which is great for me because now nobody expects me to edit it.
Well, I hope StreamYard reaches out to you. I'm talking down to the universe. I'm putting it out there. I think StreamYard's going to reach out to you, and then I think some AI system is going to reach out to you. I'm putting it out there.
I hope so. I would love to have a partnership with AppSumo, because a lot of people are building products there and using AppSumo's process to promote and grow an audience quickly. I would love to partner with somebody like that, or some of the other venture capital people that are investing in startups or early process founders, because the more we can get accessibility built in the beginning, the more it will help them as a business owner, and the less trouble it'll be to add it in later.
That is all right. So this moves us right into the idea of branding. So you dive in. You've just embraced the whole the blindness and things as part of your brand. How do you advise people that maybe don't have such a unique opportunity to pull the brand out in their stories?
Well, you said the key word, stories. What is your story? Because everybody has something unique to their experience. As we learned during COVID, single moms who are deciding to lean into their art, their baking, their singing, their accounting, whatever it is that they didn't do in their real job. People who come from impoverished backgrounds, people who represent underrepresented minorities, people in certain areas of public life, people who are in journalism. What is your story? Where did you come from? What are some of the key experiences in your life that made you who you are now? And you can probably lean into those. Yeah, I have the blindness and the carnival stuff, and being a trailblazer on the internet as a blind entrepreneur. But I'm sure you have stuff. And the other thing is I don't find people have trouble telling understanding their story. I find people have trouble telling their story because there are too many quote unquote experts telling them you can't be who you really are online or it'll hurt your business. So the thing I really like to focus more on is not do you have a story, is are you telling your story? And I'm not saying you will tell your story with the openness that I do, because I've been telling my story for 20 years. But you have to start somewhere. Start in a blog post, start in an article on your website or for an association, start at a public speaking event during your intro, start on a podcast interview. And you don't have to have a podcast or be a famous person to do podcast interviews. And I highly recommend you check out podmatch.com if you want to. So start by telling your story as comfortably as you can where you are right now. And the more you tell it, the more comfortable you will become. But here's the really cool part. The more you tell it, the more stuff you will realize happened that you forgot happened. For example, when I was in high school, I was part of a scout troop for boys who were visually impaired, and I completed all the requirements to become an Eagle Scout. I'm one of the few blind Eagles. This is a big deal at that time, but I don't talk about it as much as I should. We've all gone through things, but there's time that we've gotten far enough away from them in time that we diminish them, we discount them, we forget about them. So I tell people with any exercise like this, where you're working on your story, whether you're trying to find positive experiences so that you can help move forward in your day, or you're trying to find solutions, get some real paper and a pen or a pencil. Electronic paper works okay, but there's something about the physical manipulation of the paper in your hands, the scratching of the pencil or pen, the smell of the ink. But make a list. Think about any experience that you've had in your life. And through each experience, what did you learn? What skills did you accumulate? What aha moments did you have about yourself or the world around you? Because, I've done a lot of things. I've got a lot of experiences, but it's not just the experiences. It's not just my willingness to talk about them. It's the things that I learned and that I try to help other people learn, like interdependence, which is all about asking for help or opportunities and accepting them when offered to you, or determined positivity, where you decide that there are positive things in your world and you look for them till you find them, or just when it comes to adversity, we overcome adversity by moving forward. So that would be what I would say. You have a story. You just have to take the time, one, to find it, and two, to tell it, and then three, to become comfortable with it so that it becomes part of your brand.
That's an awesome answer. All right. So when you talk about brand, we're talking about your podcast. When I use the phrase useful data, what does that mean to you? What is useful data?
I'm going to have to guess, but if we're talking about a podcast, I'm not afraid to admit that I have to guess. I mean, honesty and authenticity is a big part of my brand. So, but I think we're probably talking about podcast stats and website stats. And I personally believe that looking at too many of those stats can one, distract you from more important work. But I would say the stats that I look at when I'm considering my podcast, I also help some other people with disabilities with their podcasts. And when I'm looking at their numbers, is I want to look at the listens, I like to look at the listens within the first week of a drop. And then I like to look at,
Gotcha.
are the listens growing over time, even if it's very slow? Are they increasing? I also like to look at what Blueberry calls impactful plays, which means they will tell me how much of an episode somebody listened to. And my first podcast, I kind of switch back. I go back and forth between What's Your Excuse, which is about overcoming adversity, and the Accessibility Advantage, which is about advocating for more accessibility and inclusion. On What's Your Excuse, when I post a new episode, I generally have 50 to 75 listens within the first week. And my impactful plays is about 91%, which means they know when I'm about to do my outro and they quit on me there, which is totally fine with me. They know what I'm going to say better than I do when I get to that point. So
it's funny.
And then, the Accessibility Advantage, it's more like about 47%. So people are getting about halfway into the podcast and then sliding away. So I've been trying to think of things I could do. One of the things I've started doing is repeating my guests a shorter version of their bio and their link, or mentioning something about myself, just trying to keep people interested. But that's where I'm at with my podcast, and I feel like those are the most important numbers.
Yeah, that's an excellent answer for useful data. It's the growth. You have to have a growth mindset that it's continually growing, and then where people are cutting off, which leads back to your growth, right? Because if they're hanging in longer, that means there's going to be more people following. Those are great answers.
Right.
All right, so
of course, it's great if you have a mechanism to reach out to your listeners, which most of us don't, where we can go, hey, why is it that y'all aren't listening past the halfway point?
Yeah. Polls. You ever get into conversations or DM or comments with people?
I try to, but not so much. I generally have those. I sometimes get into those on LinkedIn after a new episode, so that does happen. But I sometimes feel that my audience is unwilling to be as honest with me as I would like them to be. So I need a stealth way to find out who, what they're thinking, and that of course could be a poll, could be a survey, and I'll have to look into that. Thanks for that suggestion.
That's pretty good. Yeah, no, that's good. All right, so talk to us about a strategy that you don't do anymore. You're like, this is the ROI is not there, waste of time, don't do it.
Okay, I'm gonna say one here that's probably gonna upset a lot of people that are into passive income. I have written and published 4 books. The people have responded favorably to the books, but they haven't been a good return on my investment. The first book was Leading You Out of the Darkness into the Light, A Blind Man's Inspirational Guide to Business Success, has been a really good book for me. And the number of reviews is greater. The number of sales, both electronic and in person, where I autograph them, has been very good. The other books have not done so well. And at the same time, I have started getting opportunities to write for publications where they pay me. So as a blind person, it takes a lot of services in order to self-publish a book. And so a self-published book is an expensive proposition for me, which means it's hard to get a positive return on investment, even if everything goes great. At the same time, so my brother likes to say, Max, I prefer it when people pay you to write instead of when you pay to write. So that's it. I understand that the self-published book can be a great vehicle if you're able to do all of the services yourself, and if you publish a lot of short books. Unfortunately, as you can tell by my answers today, I'm not good on short books. And as I already mentioned, I have to hire a bunch of folks to publish.
Yeah. So with self-publishing, do you have editing? How does that work for you? Like, you get somebody to read it over for you, or how does that work?
Right. So I use the basic editing stuff, and I write basically depending on which computer I have at the time, I'll write in Word or in a text document on my Mac, and I go through it and do simple editing, and then I send it off to my editor. The lady that's worked with me on all 4 of my books, her name is Lorraine Regularly, and her company is wordingwell.com out of Thunder Bay, Ontario, Canada. So I can't complain too much on here about cold in Texas because they know what the word really means. But yeah, CS. But what's really cool though is there's I highly encourage any writer, whether you're writing blog posts, articles, or a book, always read your work out loud when you're editing it. So
Good.
we have this kind of joke between us. She'll go, "Yeah, Max, I catch the stuff that you miss because you can't see the page, and and
Jeez.
and you catch some of the stuff that I miss because you're listening to the page." So, but by the time that we go back and forth between us, we generally catch. I've yet to have a reader reach out to me. Of course, I haven't had enough readers, I don't think, to have that happen. But I've yet to have somebody reach out to me and go, in chapter 26 on page, you had a dangling participle. No, that's never happened. So I think
Never
we do a
happened. I don't
good
know.
job. I think we do
I
a
don't know.
good job together as Siamese editors of my books.
I would say 99% of your readers don't know what a dangling participle is. So I think you'll be safe. I think you'll be all right with that.
Okay, good. Good to know. Good to know.
All right. So as we finish up the last question before we get into the podcast and have you pitch your business, talk to us about confidence. You've had a lot of things happen to you. You've had every opportunity to not be successful. You've had every opportunity to take on excuses, and you haven't. Talk to us. Where do you build this confidence? Where do you get it from?
Right. So for me, it's been two places. One, it was growing up in a family of people who did a very hard thing for a living and did it without most of the resources that they would prefer to have at the time. And when you grow up in a family of carnival owners, you learn from an early age that the only thing that matters is making opening. So if on Thursday or Friday night people can ride the Ferris wheel, buy a funnel cake, and try to win a stuffed animal, then the week was a good week, regardless of the gross. So that's something you learn. It's built into you. But then I've had a lot of great people around me over the years, both in person and virtually, starting with teachers and scoutmasters and other members of our scout troop to professors in college to people that I've met online. Some of the people that have really encouraged me on those days where I haven't been so confident or so resilient, quite often just to remind me that I'm not the kind of person who pulls his head inside the shell and quits. But I would say also another part of this is just continuing to go through challenges. So I mentioned earlier when we were talking about building a brand that everybody has a story, and they need to focus more on that past story. So we all have experiences that will give us confidence, that will give us resilience. The thing is when you think back to your past experiences, and you watch that movie in your head, are you watching the horror version or are you watching the stand up and cheer part of the movie? So we have to be careful and make sure that we remember more of the positive times we overcame challenges than the setbacks or the disasters before those celebrations and successes. So I like to say that people who are resilient have generally been through hard times, and I'm one of those people. I've gotten really good at getting back up because I've spent too much of my life on my backside looking up at where the sky should be.
Yeah.
So
Man, that is wonderful. That's good. Wonderful words of wisdom to finish us off here. All your experiences, your knowledge, it's a mindset shift for the audience too, which I really appreciate. The fact that you've had so much diversity and different perspectives that you can kind of make us think a little bit differently. Like we do have advantages and we need to take care of those advantages. We have to be resilient. So, that's a great story and I appreciate you. Can we talk about your podcast to get us as the outro and where people can get a hold of you?
Sure. They can get a hold of me at theaccessibilityadvantage.com. They can send an email to Maxwell at theaccessibilityadvantage.com. They can find me on LinkedIn. That's Maxwell Ivey, and it's Ivy as in Victor EY. The podcast is The Accessibility Advantage, where I'm advocating for more accessibility and inclusion by emphasizing the many positive benefits instead of focusing on compliance and shame. And again, that website is theaccessibilityadvantage.com. And if your organization is considering working to improve accessibility on your online presence or in your in-person facilities, thanks for that suggestion, my brother. Then please reach out to me. We'll have a conversation. Maybe you'll even end up on my podcast.
There you go. That'd be awesome. And if you work for StreamYard or in an AI space and you need somebody to hire to take care of the accessibility, you got a guy right here who's ready and eager to be a partner right there. And he'd like to live in Cancun while he does it. So if you put him in Cancun, we nice and study. He can
Cancun,
work on your
Hawaii.
AI.
Yeah, Cancun, Hawaii, Sydney, London, Toronto. If they have the checkbook or the airline miles, I'll travel.
So in case you're one of those people, reach out to Max too. He's looking for you. All right, Max, I appreciate your time and your help today. You've been an awesome guest, and I appreciate you.
Thank you so much.